By midday, they have reached the mountain on which Hrothgar's Eyes is built. A gatehouse has been built here. Parts of the structure look like they've been repaired. A werewolf. He is sleeping on a bed of the clothes of his victims. Boulder. Sitting at the table is a woman. Fleetwood shoots web. Touchberry enters combat. Fleetwood casts sleep, and they heave him into the web. Finally, they reach the summit of the mountain. Episode of Time Team or something. There is a staircase leading down into the solid rock of the mountain itself. Also on this summit, there is a tower. This tower is clearly the thing. Let's go see the thing. They approach the tower. The wind up here is ferocious. Did I mention that? The wind up here is ferocious. But as they approach the tower, the sound vanishes. They still feel the wind, but there's no sound. One of them goes to make a remark on that. I don't know, Touchberry turns around to say, "What's going on?" Nothing happens. There is a silence spell cast in this area and made permanent by an ancient magic. There is a silence spell cast around this tower. Peculiar. The doorway looms open. It is dark inside, but there's nothing to stop them, and so in they walk. As they cross the threshold, they feel like they're pushing against something, like walking in a swimming pool, right? It's pushing against something, but they're soon through. It's not impossible. It doesn't stop them, and they're through. They don't know it. They have just passed through several layers of magical protection, spells against evil. They have passed that test. They are of the same alignment as the people who cast the spells. In they go. All they find in here is a staircase. This tower is essentially an enormous spiral staircase, and so they begin to climb. Nothing happens to them along the way. They are actually safer in here than they've been since they left home. Probably safer than they were at home. Up they go until they emerge at the top. Breathtaking views over the valleys and mountains around. This is the highest spot for a long way. In the middle of this space, on a dais, sits a stone chair. A throne, almost. Specifically, this throne. Okay, my crafting is not top-notch, but I couldn't find any images that looked anything like what I wanted, so I decided to make it. So, this is what you get. This chair. On its back are carved two eyes. Hrothgar's eyes. All right. Between you and me, I stole this bit from Tolkien. I steal everything from Tolkien. It's not a big surprise. Don't you even. Fine. Yeah, I took it from Tolkien. Of course I did. Now, I was reading Lord of the Rings to the boys at this time, but we had not gotten to this chapter. The Rhoros Falls, right? Frodo sits in the chair, and so they didn't see this coming. But they did want to sit in the chair. Of course you want to sit in the chair. Like, why wouldn't you? I can't remember who goes first. It might have been Bob Johnny, might have been Touchberry. I don't remember. But one by one, they all sit in the chair. And as they sit down, their vision clouds. All around the edges becomes blurry and smoky almost, but the center of their vision becomes magnified. Clarity that they couldn't imagine. They can see for miles and miles and miles. Things that are way in the distance, blurs on the horizon, are suddenly clear and present. They can see far. They can see impossibly far. Now, I do have some basic guidelines for this particular chair. It has a certain range, which I laid out on the map, so I know what is in its sight and what is not. Also, it can't see around things, right? So if there's a mountain and something goes behind the mountain, they can't see it. Now, once they're in the chair, they do what, everyone does when they're in a high up place, try to see home, right? So they want to see Honeywood. And I think it's Touchberry's in the chair when he does this. He wants to go and look at Honeywood. Now, the chair is situated to look in a northeasterly direction, roughly. Honeywood is south, a little bit east. So he knows he needs to turn to see it. And Touchberry says, I want to turn and look at Honeywood. And he means like this, right? Just turn in the chair. As he has these thoughts, though, The chair, the dais it's sitting on, all swivels. There's a grinding noise as this thing turns. It's a magic chair. Of course it turns by itself. He looks at Honeywood, and interestingly, he can see that in their absence, work has continued on the palisade, and they have now added a watchtower beside one of the gates. And even out in front of the town hall, he sees the mayor, and the mayor is yelling at someone. The mayor's angry about somebody. The person he's yelling at has their back to him, and he's sort of slumped over like, oh. Anyway, I thought that was kind of fun and cute. They can see that kind of distance. So they each take a turn in the chair. The things of interest that they see, Touchberry does try to see the Shire, but it's too far. The things of interest that they see from here, in addition to just, oh, neat, all the people look like ants, other than that, they see a couple of things of interest. East, a little south of east from them, they see in the side of a cliff an opening, and around that opening, goblins. It is getting toward night now, and the goblins are in the shadows of the mountains, and they're working on a passage. It looks like, as they watch, it looks like they're trying to enlarge it. Those are the old kobold caverns, and the goblins are enlarging them for their own purposes. My goblins like wide open passages because they build these horrible machines, and they need room to get them in and out. Anyway, the other thing that is important, and the reason they were sent here, while Fleetwood is in the chair and he's scanning the area looking for things, he suddenly catches, just out of the corner of his eye, and then he swings back to it, just in time to see a dragon. The unmistakable silhouette of a dragon soaring through the air. He sees it just long enough to see it dive behind a mountain and out of his sight. A dragon, unmistakably a dragon. He can't tell scale, he can't tell color, but there is definitely a dragon out there. And now they have put the puzzle together. They know what's going on, and they know what they will eventually have to do. But right now, what they have to do is go back down because they have that staircase to deal with. They've gotten all they can up there. They spend some time looking around, but they eventually go back down and decide we should go find out what's down there. Okay. The staircase spirals and eventually empties out into a large chamber. Every square on this map is 5 feet, and so the chamber is 60 by 60. Including the stairs they have just come down, there is a doorway in each wall, the other 3 closed by doors. 4 large pillars hold up the roof, and chained to one of those pillars is a dwarf. He is unconscious. He looks like he has been abused, beaten, badly mistreated, but a dwarf. Right away, they go to his assistance. They try to revive him, they give him some drink, they give him some food, and he begins to mumble and talk. He is barely comprehensible. They're not getting much out of him. He's still in a daze. He is either confused or delirious or something. He's beginning to revive when, BAM! The door nearest to them bursts open, and through it leaps this gray and black streak, a werewolf. A female werewolf comes barreling through and charges into the group. Attack, battle on. Fortunately for them, she's armed. And I say fortunately because a sword stroke does not turn you into a werewolf. The battle is fierce, however. She is one of the big bads in this adventure, and it is ferocious. At this point, Bob Johnny expels the other of his magic missiles. Fleetwood tries casting light in her eyes, but she makes the save. It doesn't succeed. Eventually, though, they do defeat her. She goes down hard. Faux-Fire and Touchberry stay with the dwarf to continue to try to revive him, while the 2 elves go to investigate the room she burst out of. Is there anything else in there that's about to come out? They're thinking probably not, because if there was sounds of combat, if she had friends in there, they'd have come out to help. So they're not too worried, but they go in to check it out. It seems to be some sort of study. There's a table against the opposite wall on which there is a scroll, a quill, and a bottle of ink. A stool sits in front of it. Like most of these rooms, it is a bit of a mess, things littering the floor. Lycanthropy makes you a slob, I guess. Yeah. There's a niche cut into one of the walls, right into the living rock, and in that niche they discover an ancient book. Bob Johnny opens it. It crumbles in his hands. Most of the pages are unreadable, just falling apart. They find only a few snippets of text which they can read. They run as follows. Another raid by the goblin horde. We cut them down, but they retreated, still with strength. They will no doubt return. Supplies run low, as the snow is holding fast, and the baggage cannot get through the passes. Next entry. Uther returned yesterday as the sky darkened. He made his usual boasts, and hurled a great rock toward our troops. It hit nobody, but unsettled the men. Supplies finally broke through. The escort reports hard going, harassed along the way by goblins. The men will remain with us until the storms pass, and will return with my request for action. Either more troops be sent, or we must... And here it fades away. They move with great speed, as is common to their kind, but seem different. Even watching them from a distance, we discern that they carry weapons and shields, and appear less animal than their like. More startling, we have observed them in times when the moon was not full, or even in the sky. I do not know what devilry this is, some new creature or some magic, but they bear a strange symbol on their... And finally, Guardian will be left. I do not approve of this dark... This is all they find that can be read in the book. Bob, Johnny, and Fleetwood, of course, bring this out into the main chamber for them all to puzzle over, and as they are doing so, the dwarf is reviving. He lets them know his name is Torek. He is a miner. He was on his way to explore a potential new mine when he was attacked by the werewolves and dragged here. They did not bite him, though. He found it strange. As hard as he fought trying to kill them, they would only disarm him and capture him. They didn't want to inflict lycanthropy on him. Why? Why not? Why not kill him? Why not eat him? They wanted a worker. They have been forcing him to repair some of the stonework in this old fortress. That is why they kept him alive. They offer to release him. He agrees, although he is afraid. He is afraid of Evalio. They say, who's Evalio? He says, their leader, Evalio. He is terrible. So now they're wondering, where's Evalio? Was he one of the ones we've already killed? Yeah. They let the dwarf go, and they give him one of the swords that the werewolf, the female werewolf, had been armed with. So now he's got a weapon, and he's not much use. He's only got 2 hit points because he's in such rough shape. But at any rate, they're all together now, and they head toward one of the other doors. He tells them he has never seen the werewolves go through the double doors across from the staircase. They decide to leave that for last. They try the door across from the study. It opens, and they find there a bedroom. It's a bedchamber. Against one wall is a bed, a 4-poster with sumptuous bed clothing on it. It looks luxurious. There is a table with 2 stools. On the table is a bottle of wine and 2 glasses. In the corner, a chest. That's what they want to look at. I ask, who's checking it out? They say, oh, we all want to look. Okay. Now, they do ask Faux Fire to check for traps first. They have that much sense. They find no traps. It isn't trapped. They open it up, and in there they find bolts of rich cloth. They find candlesticks of silver. They also find gold and electrum and jewels. Now, they're oohing and eyeing over all of this when they hear a voice at the doorway. I would say welcome to my home, but welcome you are not. They turn around to see a large, powerfully built man leaning in the doorway. He has long, black hair. His clothes are rich. Around his neck there is a necklace with a symbol on it, the symbol of the Barrow Wight. There's a shield slung to his back, and from his belt is hanging a mace. They all stare at him, and he at them in a moment of tension. You, of course, know what I am. I am Evalio of the Pack. The Pack. You're Evalio of the Pack. You're a werewolf, aren't you? He just laughs. He says, this is my home, and you have attacked my children. Children? What do you mean your children? Your people cast them off, did not want them. I rescued them. I gave them a home and a sense of purpose, and you have slaughtered them. I will be revenged! And with one motion, he slings the shield off of his back, pulls the mace from his belt, and leaps at them. Mid-leap, he transforms. No long, panting, heaving process for Evalio. Mid-leap, he transforms, and he is on them. This guy is tough. This guy is bad. This fight is hard. He swings with the mace. He bites. He smashes with the shield. It's huge. Remember, almost all of the spells have been expended back down the mountain. They've got no magic missiles left. They've got no sleep. They've got no light. They only have one web spell. And right now, he has jumped into the midst of them, so they can't cast it. There's nowhere to cast it without catching them all up in the web. So it's fierce hand-to-hand combat. The dwarf shrieks, dives to the ground, and gets under the bed. He will stay there for the rest of the battle. In the middle of it, through the door come 2 more wolves. The woman and man that were left back down the mountain. He has freed them, or they have freed themselves. At any rate, in they come. Because of the configuration of the battle, they had been over by that chest, so they were kind of pinned by the bed. But in the course of the battle, Foefire had gotten herself free and was now fighting Evalio from this side. They were trying to surround him. But that meant that she was isolated on that side as the other 2 came in, so she was the only one there to fight them. So now she's fighting 2, and it's not going well for her. One of them isn't terribly strong. The male is not a terribly strong werewolf, but, I mean, they're werewolves. Even a weaker werewolf is still a werewolf, so it's not going well for Foefire. They do not have weapons. They are biting. They are clawing. She is taking serious damage that is putting her at risk of contracting lycanthropy. The others are fighting Evalio, and he is proving to be an extraordinarily tough opponent, but it is 3-on-1, and they're wearing him down. In the midst of this combat, they see that Foefire is alone, and Touchberry, who finds it easier to dodge around and be nimble, gets away and joins the fight there and starts to fight those 2. He tips the balance of power, and one of the wolves dies by Foefire's hand. The female runs out the door. Touchberry boots out after her, chasing her out into the main room, where they begin to fight out there. Foefire stays put. She is down so low. She's down into single digits. I think it's like 4 hit points left. She's not going anywhere. At this point, Evalio has been brought down far enough. He is starting to get nervous. He casts about. He sees that the doorway is clear, and he bounds for it and goes out. He passes Touchberry just as Touchberry is killing the other werewolf, and up the staircase Evalio runs. Now, the characters chase after him for a little bit, but they get to the top and he's gone, and they have no idea. It is nighttime, it is dark, it is windy, it is dangerous out there, and they have no idea how many other werewolves might be there, and they have no idea what state Evalio might be in. So they let him go. They let him go. We'll add him to the list of enemies they have running around in the world. Back down they go to check on Foefire. Not good is the answer. Touchberry has not used his sword this day, so he uses it now on Foefire. The players know enough about werewolves. They haven't read the monster manual. I don't let them peek at all the DM's stuff. But they know enough about werewolves to think that Mama might be gonna become a werewolf. They know that it's transferred by bites. So some of the others of them have been bitten as well. They don't know about the halfway mark in hit points, but they know that it's transferred by bites. So they're thinking, are we going to all become werewolves now? What's going to happen? Anyway, they barricade themselves in this room. The door is still intact. They barricade themselves in this room, and they spend a very nervous night. They are able to recover some hit points. My rule is a 1d6 plus 1 for a night's sleep. It's just like a cure light wounds. A night's sleep is like a healing potion for them. So they do recover some hit points. Touchberry's not too badly off. Bob Johnny is also not too badly off. Fleetwood and Bob Johnny are middling. Foefire is still quite low. Even after the healing sword and a night's sleep, she's not in great shape. First thing the next day, Touchberry again uses the sword to heal her. She's getting a little better, but, it's not great. The spell choices for the day, again, Bob Johnny, 2 magic missiles and a web. Fleetwood, sleep and light and web. They unbarricade themselves and peek out. 2 bodies out here, both the women, the werewolves, are out here, dead. Okay, nothing else. All that is left to investigate are the double doors across from the staircase, and to those they go. Opening the doors, they get a sense of why perhaps the werewolves wanted nothing to do with this room. It's a chapel. On the side walls are rows of columns, and at the far end, in the curve, which is known as an apse, is your church vocab word for today, in the apse of this chapel there is an altar. Flanking the altar are statues. Now, for a moment they're nervous. They have fought a living statue before. These are not living statues, they're just statues. The one to their left is a statue of a bearded cleric in robes, his hand lifted in blessing. The one to their right is a warrior, bearded and fierce-looking. His arms are extended, and cradled in his hands is a large bow of bronze. Its ends are sculpted as dragon heads, and the string is metal. Inscribed on the bow are runes that the characters cannot read. They will have them translated later, but they say Dragon's Bane. This bow is +2 against dragons. That'll come in handy. Of course, the characters do not know this at the time. They begin to debate, should we take this bow? Is this going to trigger some sort of trap? Is this going to... Yes, it will. But should we take it? Finally, they decide these two statues are heroes. This is a statue of Marnock. They can identify that. They know the legend well enough. Fofire especially, being human, this is kind of one of her heroes. She can identify him. This is a statue of Marnock. The other one, they deduce, must be Marnock's great ally and friend, Sigismund. Now, if you know the story of Sigismund, well, you may be detecting some connections to the larger plot. At any rate, one of Sigismund's things is that he was a dragon slayer. Here is a bow held in the hands of the dragon slayer with dragons on either end of the bow. Clearly, this is a good thing, considering we've just seen a dragon. So they lift the bow. The moment they do, there is a shriek from behind them. Over the door of the chapel, which they never bothered to investigate, to look at, over the door had been perched a gargoyle, magically bound to this room, bound to that bow, and as soon as it is touched, lifted, taken, it attacks. It swoops the length of the chapel and attacks. Now, gargoyles can only be hit by magic weapons, so you've got 3 of your party who can. Bob Johnny has the axe, and Fleetwood and Touchberry have magic swords. The bow is something they're going to give to Fofire because she doesn't have a magic weapon yet, and thieves are good with bows and things like that. She has a high dexterity. They haven't given it to her yet. She doesn't even have any arrows with her. So she lashes out with her sword. It doesn't do anything, right? Magic missile does, and Bob Johnny fires one. They begin to fight this gargoyle. Fleetwood senses that sleep is not going to work on this thing. It wouldn't. So he doesn't bother. He simply attacks with his sword. The dwarf, remember, the dwarf is with them, Torek. He also attempts to fight it, but he's just got a sword. It's a normal sword. It doesn't do anything. It just clangs off the creature helplessly. Eventually they do defeat it. However, it crashes to the ground, dead. Is there anything else this place can throw at us? Let's get out of here. They run. I mean, essentially, they cut and run. They don't check for secret doors, which is okay because there aren't any, and they just run. As they go up, they're worried, are we going to see Evalio? They emerge into the snow, and they can see his bloody footprints leading away. And as the footprints go, they change from wolf to human in the snow, and they can see as he fled. Okay, well, he's gone. At some point, they lose those footprints. The ground becomes too icy, too hard, bare. The wind has swept all the snow away. They do lose the footprints eventually, so they don't know exactly where he is. But out they go. It is again now daytime of the second day, and they head back down the mountain. They reach the gatehouse and discover the portcullis is open. They had left it closed, remember. They find it open. How? Did Evalio open it? On his way out? Who knows? Was he in the area of the mountain? Was he within the gatehouse when they arrived? And they simply didn't run into him? Or did he arrive later? He must have had to climb over the wall of the gatehouse as they had to do. Who knows? At any rate, out they go, down the mountain, across the ridge. They are heading for that cave. They know it's there. They know that if they try to go further, they will never reach another suitable shelter. So they head for the cave. They get to the cave, and there they collapse. Early evening, but that's where they're going to spend the night.